Commander Jake Harrison stood at the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the silver ships of the Zephyrian Empire patrol the space around Earth's moon. The alien vessels moved with perfect formation, their crystalline hulls catching the light from distant stars. It had been 15 years since the Treaty of Centauri Prime, and the aliens still treated humans like children who needed constant watching. Jake remembered the war. He had been just a young lieutenant when the Zephyrians first arrived. There, ships had appeared without warning, blocking out the sun over major cities on Earth. The message they sent was simple: surrender or die. Humanity had chosen to fight, and they had lost badly. The first battle lasted only 6 hours. Earth's most advanced warships were destroyed like toys against the alien technology. Cities burned, millions died, and within 3 months, humanity had no choice but to sign the treaty that made them servants in their own solar system. Now Jake commanded Luna Station, the largest mining facility on the moon. Every day, human workers dug deep into the lunar surface, pulling out rare minerals that the Zephyrians needed for their empire. The alien said the work was payment for the war damage, but everyone knew it was really about keeping humans busy and defeated. "Commander, we have the daily production report," said Lisa Park, his communications officer. She was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and tired eyes. Like everyone else, she had learned to smile when the aliens were watching and frown when they were not. "How much today?" Jake asked, not turning from the window. 2,000 tons of tritium, 1,500 tons of rare earth metals, and 500 tons of platinum," Lisa replied. "The Zephyrians will be pleased." Jake nodded slowly. The numbers were good, but they meant nothing to him. Every ton of metal they mined made the alien empire stronger while keeping humanity weak. But what choice did they have? The treaty was clear. Humans would mine, farm, and serve, or they would be wiped out completely. A soft beep came from the communication console. Lisa moved quickly to answer it. "Luna Station. This is Lisa Park." The voice that came back was cold and mechanical, speaking through a translation device. "This is Patrol Leader Vethmore. We require inspection of Mining Sector 7. "Of course." "Patrol Leader," Lisa replied with practiced politeness. "Commander Harrison will meet you at Docking Bay 3 in 20 minutes. Jake sighed and straightened his uniform. The Zephyrians loved their inspections. They would walk through the mining tunnels, check the equipment, and make sure humans were working hard enough. It was all about control, about reminding everyone who was really in charge. The walk to the docking bay took Jake through the main corridor of Luna Station. Hundreds of workers lived here, mining the moon and sending the materials to Earth or directly to Zephyrian ships. The corridor was clean and well lit, but Jake could see the sadness in people's faces. They worked, they ate, they slept, and they pretended to be happy when aliens were around. Docking Bay 3 was large enough to hold a dozen small ships. Today it held one Zephyrian patrol vessel, its surface shining like a mirror. The airlock opened with a hiss and Patrol Leader Vethmore stepped out. The alien was 9 feet tall and looked like a walking crystal sculpture. His skin was clear and hard, with lights moving under it like electricity. His forearms moved with perfect coordination, and his large black eyes seemed to see everything at once. Like all Zephyrians, he wore no clothes, needing none with his natural armor. "Commander." "Harrison," Vethmore said through his translator. The device made his voice sound flat and emotionless. "Your station continues to meet production targets." "Thank you, Patrol Leader," Jake replied, keeping his voice respectful. "We work hard to serve the Empire." Vethmore's head tilted slightly. A gesture Jake had learned meant the alien was thinking. 15 years since the treaty, and humans have adapted well to their new role. No rebellion, no resistance, only productive work. "The war taught us many lessons," Jake said carefully. "We understand our place now." "Good," Vethmore replied. "The Empire values species that accept reality. Come, show me Sector 7. They walked through the station together, Jake leading the way while the alien observed everything with cold attention. Workers stopped what they were doing to bow as they passed, a requirement under the treaty. Jake hated seeing his people bow, to their conquerors, but showing anger would only bring punishment. Sector 7 was one of the deepest mining areas, where massive machines dug into the moon's core. The sound was deafening, and the air was thick with dust despite the filtration systems. Human workers operated the equipment while robot supervisors ensured they met their quotas. Production here has increased by 12%, Jake reported, reading from a tablet. The new mining techniques are working well. Vethamore examined the operation with interest. These techniques, they are human innovations? Yes, sir. Our engineers found ways to dig deeper and extract more minerals with the same equipment. Interesting, the alien said. Humans show unexpected creativity when properly motivated. This is why the Empire chose to preserve your species rather than eliminate you entirely. Jake bit back his first response and nodded instead. We are grateful for the Empire's wisdom. The inspection continued for 2 more hours. Vethamore checked every major system, questioned workers, and reviewed production records. Finally, satisfied that everything was in order, he prepared to leave. Your compliance continues to be exemplary, Commander, the alien said as they returned to the docking bay. High Command is pleased with human productivity across all colonies. We live to serve, Jake replied, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. After the patrol ship left, Jake returned to his office and closed the door. He sat behind his desk and activated a small device that would block any listening equipment. Then he opened a hidden compartment and took out a special communication pad. The screen flickered to life, showing the face of Dan Carter, a man Jake had known since military academy. Dan looked older now, with gray in his hair and lines around his eyes, but his expression was sharp and determined. How did the inspection go? Dan asked quietly. Same as always, Jake replied. They see what they want to see. Production numbers, obedient workers, no signs of resistance. Good. Any changes in patrol patterns? None. They still think we're beaten dogs who only care about staying alive. Dan smiled grimly. Let them think that. Every day, they underestimate us. Is another day we get stronger. Jake leaned forward. How are preparations going on your end? Better than expected. The new facilities are almost ready, and Helen's team has made another breakthrough with their shield technology. We're not just catching up to them anymore, Jake. In some areas, we're getting ahead. And they have no idea? None at all. They think all our research is just maintenance work on their equipment. They never imagined we could learn from it and make it better. Jake felt a familiar mix of hope and fear. For 15 years, humanity had played the role of the defeated enemy. They had bowed, worked, and pretended to accept their fate. But beneath the surface, in secret facilities and hidden laboratories, they had been preparing for the day when they would fight back. Any word on the timeline, Com? Jake asked. Dan's expression grew serious. Soon. Helen thinks we'll be ready within the year. All the pieces are falling into place. And the other colonies? Everyone's ready. Earth, Mars, the asteroid stations, even the outer planet facilities. When the signal comes, we'll all move together. Jake nodded and closed the communication link. He put the device back in its hiding place and returned to his normal duties. Outside his window, another Zephyrian patrol ship passed by, its crew, confident that the humans below were nothing more than useful servants. They had no idea that those same servants were preparing to bite back. Dr. Helen Rodriguez adjusted her protective goggles and carefully examined the Zephyrian plasma conduit on her workbench. The alien technology hummed with energy, its crystalline structure pulsing with blue light. To any observer, she was simply performing routine maintenance on damaged equipment. In reality, she was unlocking secrets that could change the course of human history. Hand me the molecular scanner, she said to Marcus Stone, her chief engineer. Marcus was a big man with gentle hands, perfect for the delicate work they did, in secret. He had been with Helen's team for 8 years, ever since they started the project. Same frequency pattern as the last one? Marcus asked, passing her the device. Exactly the same. They build everything to identical specifications. No creativity, no innovation. They just copy the same designs over and over again. Helen smiled. As she spoke, It was the aliens' biggest weakness, and they did not even know it. The laboratory was hidden 3 levels below the official repair facility on Europa Station. The Zephyrians knew humans worked here, fixing their broken equipment and maintaining their systems. What they did not know was that every piece of technology brought for repair was completely analyzed, copied, and improved upon before being returned. Helen's team had learned how Zephyrian shields worked, how their weapons generated plasma beams, and how their ships moved faster than light. More importantly, they had found ways to make all of these systems better. Human creativity combined with alien technology was producing results that surprised even Helen. "The new plasma rifle is ready for testing," said Amy Chen, Helen's weapons specialist. Amy was quiet and methodical, the kind of person who never made mistakes. She held up a device that looked similar to Zephyrian weapons but was clearly different. Where alien weapons were smooth and crystalline, this one had a rougher, more practical appearance. "Power output?" Helen asked. 30% higher than the original, and it uses half the energy. Plus, we added a rapid-fire mode that their weapons do not have. Helen nodded with satisfaction. This was their advantage. Zephyrians made weapons for show, impressive and intimidating but not necessarily practical. Humans made weapons to win fights. The communication panel on the wall beeped softly. Helen pressed a button and the face of General William Hayes appeared on the screen. The general looked tired but determined, like a man carrying a heavy burden. "Dr. Rodriguez, how is the progress?" he asked. "Better than expected, General. We have working prototypes of their shield generators, plasma weapons, and propulsion systems. All improved beyond original specifications. Good. We need them. The shipyards are ahead of schedule, but we need the technology to make the ships effective." Helen leaned forward. "How many ships, General?" "More than the aliens think we could ever build. Captain Torres reports that Facility 7 alone will have 50 ships ready within 6 months. Similar numbers from all the other hidden yards. The plan was massive in scope. While Zephyrians thought humans were just mining asteroids and maintaining equipment, they were actually building a secret fleet. Mining operations provided raw materials, repair facilities provided technology, and hidden shipyards scattered throughout the solar system provided construction capability. "Any problems with the Zephyrian inspections?" Helen asked. "None so far. They see what they expect to see. Mining equipment, agricultural facilities, and repair stations. They never look deeper, never ask the right questions." After the general signed off, Helen returned to her work. The plasma conduit was revealing new secrets under detailed analysis. She discovered that the aliens used a specific crystal matrix to contain the energy. But the matrix could be modified to store more power in a smaller space. "Marcus, look at this," she said, pointing to her scanner readings. "If we change the crystal alignment by just 2 degrees, we can double the power output." Marcus studied the data. "That would make our weapons significantly more powerful than theirs. Not just weapons, shields, engines, everything. They have been using the same technology for so long that they stopped trying to improve it. We are starting fresh so we can see possibilities they cannot." Across the room, Amy was testing another innovation. She had taken a Zephyrian communication device and modified it to intercept alien transmissions. The device looked exactly like the original, but it now served as a spy tool. "I am picking up patrol schedules for the next month," Amy reported. "Same patterns, same routes. They really do not expect any trouble from us." This information was invaluable for the resistance. Every patrol route, every inspection schedule, every movement of alien forces was secretly recorded and analyzed. The data went to people like Major Kevin Walsh, who used it to plan operations that the aliens never suspected. Helen's tablet chimed with an incoming message from one of the hidden shipyards. Captain Rachel Torres was reporting from the facility, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. The message was brief but encouraging. "Construction ahead of schedule. Request additional power systems. Marcus, prepare 20 of the new plasma generators for shipment to Facility 4, Helen ordered. "Make sure they are packed to look like mining equipment." The shipyards were marvels of human engineering and determination. Hidden inside asteroids on the dark sides of moons, and in the outer reaches of the solar system, Human workers labored, day and night, to build a fleet that would shock the Zephyrian Empire. The ships were designed using captured alien technology, but built with human practicality and innovation. Each vessel was smaller than a Zephyrian battleship but carried more firepower. They were faster, more maneuverable, and equipped with weapon systems that the aliens had never seen. Most importantly, they were built by people fighting for their freedom, not soldiers fighting for an empire. Helen received another communication, this one from Major Kevin Walsh on Earth. Kevin worked in intelligence, gathering information about Zephyrian operations and weaknesses. His face appeared on the secure channel, showing a man with sharp eyes and a careful manner. "Doctor, I have information about their command structure that might interest you," Kevin said. "What did you find?" "They use a centralized communication system. Every ship, every base, every patrol connects to a central network. If we could disrupt that network, we could blind their entire operation." Helen felt excitement building. "Do you have details about how the network operates?" "Some. It uses quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication across space. Very advanced, but also very fragile. If the central hub is damaged, the whole system fails. Send me everything you have. If we can understand their communication system, we might be able to turn it against them." The work continued through the night. Helen and her team analyzed every piece of information, every captured device, every scrap of alien technology they could get their hands on. They were not just copying what the Zephyrians had built. They were improving it, adapting it, and preparing to use it in ways the aliens never imagined. As dawn broke over Europa, Helen stood before a table covered with prototypes and test results. Plasma weapons that outperformed alien designs, shield generators that were stronger and more efficient, and communication devices that could intercept enemy transmissions. Each piece represented months of careful work and dangerous secrecy. Marcus joined her at the table. "Hard to believe we have come this far without them noticing." "They see us as a defeated species," Helen replied. "Useful for labor but not capable of real innovation. That blindness is going to cost them everything." Amy looked up from her workstation. "Doctor, the new sensor array is complete. It can detect Zephyrian ships at twice the range of their own sensors." Helen smiled. In every area of technology, humans were not just matching alien capabilities but exceeding them. The Zephyrians had given them 15 years to prepare, thinking that time would make humans more compliant and defeated. Instead, it had made them stronger, smarter, and more dangerous than their conquerors could possibly imagine. The rebellion was coming, and when it began, the aliens would face an enemy they had created through their own arrogance and neglect. Captain Steve Miller was checking cargo manifests when the emergency alarm began screaming through his freighter ship. The sound cut through the quiet hum of space travel like a knife, making his crew jump to their stations. Steve had been hauling supplies between Earth and the outer colonies for 12 years, and he had never heard an alarm like this one. "Captain, we have multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace," called out his navigator, Jenny Walsh. Her voice was tight with fear. "They are big ones, sir. Zephyrian military vessels." Steve moved quickly to the main view screen. What he saw made his blood turn cold. 3 massive alien battleships hung in space like deadly jewels, their crystalline hulls reflecting the light from nearby stars. Between them was something that made Steve's heart stop completely. The transport ship Harmony was breaking apart. The civilian vessel had been carrying 3,000 people from the mining colonies back to Earth for medical treatment and family visits. Steve watched in horror as pieces of the ship spun away into the darkness of space. Bodies floated among the wreckage, tiny figures in spacesuits who would never make it home. "What happened?" Steve whispered. His communications officer, Tom Bradley, was listening to the emergency channels. "The Zephyrians say the transport violated territorial restrictions. They claim it entered a forbidden zone." "That's impossible," Steve said. "The Harmony follows the same route every month. Captain Barnes knows those boundaries better than anyone." But the evidence was floating in front of them. 3,000 innocent people had been murdered because the aliens decided to enforce a rule that had never existed before. Steve felt rage building in his chest. hot and dangerous. "Sir, the Zephyrian ships are sending us a message," Tom reported. The main screen flickered and the cold face of a Zephyrian commander appeared. The alien's black eyes showed no emotion as he spoke through his translator device. "Human vessel, you will alter course immediately. This area is now restricted to civilian traffic. Return to your authorized shipping lane." Steve found his voice. "What about the survivors? There might be people still alive in that wreckage." "No survivors. The matter is closed. Depart immediately or face the same consequences." The screen went dark. Steve stared at the empty display, his hands shaking with fury. For 15 years, humanity had followed every rule, obeyed every command, and submitted to every humiliation, and this was their reward. Mass murder disguised as law enforcement. "Captain, what are your orders?" Jenny asked quietly. Steve looked at his crew. They were good people, loyal and hardworking. They had families waiting for them at home. But 3,000 people had just died for no reason except alien arrogance. "Record everything," he said. "Every piece of wreckage, every body, every detail. Then get us out of here and send the data to Earth Defense Command." The journey back to Earth took 18 hours. Steve spent every minute of that time watching the recordings of the massacre. Each image burned itself into his memory. Children, in spacesuits floating lifeless in the void. Elderly people who had been visiting their grandchildren. Workers who had spent their lives mining resources for the alien empire. When they reached Earth orbit, Steve immediately requested a meeting with Admiral Patricia Lee. The Admiral was the highest-ranking military officer left after the war, though, officially she commanded only defensive forces and cargo inspection teams. Unofficially, she was something much more important. The meeting took place in a secure room deep beneath the Earth Defense Headquarters in Colorado. Admiral Lee was a small woman with gray hair and steel in her eyes. She had fought in the war 15 years ago and had never forgotten the taste of defeat. "Captain Miller, I have seen your report," she said without introduction. 3,000 civilians murdered in cold blood." "Yes, ma'am. The Zephyrians claim it was a territorial violation. But I know that route. Captain Barnes was exactly where he was supposed to be." Admiral Lee nodded slowly. "They are testing us, seeing how much they can get away with before we react. The question is, are we ready to give them an answer?" Steve felt his pulse quicken. There had been rumors for years about secret preparations, hidden weapons, and plans for revenge. Most people dismissed them as wishful thinking, but looking at Admiral Lee's expression, Steve began to believe they might be true. "Ma'am, if there is anything I can do to help." "There is, Captain, but first I need to show you something." Admiral Lee led him through a series of security doors and down into levels that Steve had not known existed. They passed through corridors, filled with equipment he did not recognize, and rooms full of people working at computer terminals. Finally, they reached a massive chamber that took Steve's breath away. The room was filled with starships. They were not the crude vessels that Earth had built during the war. These ships were sleek and deadly, combining human engineering with alien technology in ways that looked almost impossible. Weapons bristled from their hulls, and their armor gleamed with an inner light that suggested advanced shielding systems. "How many?" Steve whispered. 843 combat vessels, with more completing construction every day," Admiral Lee replied. "We have been preparing for this moment for 15 years, Captain. Every mining operation, every repair facility, every seemingly innocent project has been building toward this day." Steve walked among the ships in amazement. Each one represented years of secret work and careful planning. Do the Zephyrians know? They suspect nothing. They see us as a defeated species, useful only for labor. That blindness has allowed us to build the most advanced fleet in human history. They were joined by Colonel Jason Wright, a man Steve recognized from news reports about the war. Wright had been a young lieutenant then, one of the few survivors of the first battle against the aliens. Now he was clearly something much more important. "The Harmony massacre changes everything," Wright said. "The Earth Council has given us authorization to begin Operation Reckoning." Admiral Lee turned to Steve. "Captain, we need someone who knows the shipping routes, someone the Zephyrians trust to move freely through their territory. Are you willing to help us strike back? Steve thought about the 3,000 bodies floating in space, about 15 years of humiliation and submission, about his own children growing up as servants to an alien empire. The answer was easy. What do you need me to do? The plan was brilliant in its simplicity. Steve would continue his normal cargo runs, but now his ship would carry more than supplies. Hidden in his cargo holds would be teams of human commandos, equipped with the most advanced weapons technology could produce. At predetermined locations throughout Zephyrian space, these teams would strike at communication hubs, supply depots, and patrol bases. Meanwhile, the secret fleet would emerge from its hiding places throughout the solar system. Ships disguised, as mining vessels would shed their camouflage and reveal themselves as warships. Facilities that the aliens thought were peaceful research stations would transform into military bases. The key is coordination, Admiral Lee explained. We strike everywhere at once before they can warn each other or organize a response. Major Sandra Kim, the intelligence officer coordinating the operation, spread out a holographic map of Zephyrian positions. We have identified 47 high-value targets, communication centers, supply bases, and patrol headquarters. If we can take them out simultaneously, we can blind and cripple their entire operation in this sector. Steve studied the map. How long before they bring reinforcements from the core worlds? 3 weeks minimum, Colonel Wright replied. That gives us time to consolidate our gains and prepare for the real war. Steve felt a mixture of fear and excitement. After 15 years of pretending to be defeated, humanity was finally going to fight back. But this time, they would not be the primitive species that had been crushed so easily. This time they would be ready. The meeting ended with handshakes and quiet words of determination. As Steve prepared to leave, Admiral Lee put a hand on his shoulder. Captain, what happened to the Harmony was a tragedy, but it was also the spark we needed. Sometimes it takes a great injustice to remind people that freedom is worth fighting for. Steve nodded and headed back to his ship. He had cargo to deliver and a war to start. Admiral Gregory Nelson stood on the bridge of his flagship as alarms rang throughout the Zephyrian base on Titan. Through the view screen, he could see alien ships scrambling to launch while explosions lit up their docking bays. The first phase of Operation Reckoning had begun, and the Zephyrians were learning what it meant to be caught completely unprepared. Target their communication array, Nelson ordered his weapons officer, Lieutenant Sarah Brooks. Make it clean. The new plasma cannons fired with deadly precision. The alien communication tower vanished in a ball of blue fire, cutting the base off from the rest of the Zephyrian fleet. Around Titan, similar attacks were happening at dozens of locations as the human fleet emerged from hiding. Sir, we have confirmation from all strike teams, reported Captain Lauren Burke from the communications station. Mining vessels throughout the system have dropped their disguises. The aliens are completely confused. Nelson smiled grimly. For 15 years, Zephyrian patrols had watched human mining ships going about their daily business. They had grown, so used to seeing the same vessels that they stopped paying attention. Now those harmless miners were revealing themselves as fully armed warships, and the aliens had no idea how many more were out there. The Zephyrian base commander was trying to organize a defense, but his forces were scattered and blind. Without their communication network, individual ships could not coordinate with each other. They were fighting alone against an enemy that had spent years preparing for this exact moment. Enemy battleship attempting to flee, reported Lieutenant Commander Mike Davis from the tactical station. She is heading for the jump point. Stop her, Nelson ordered. We cannot let them warn the core worlds yet. 3 human ships moved to intercept the fleeing Zephyrian vessel. The alien ship was larger and more heavily armored, but it was alone and outnumbered. More importantly, it was equipped with old technology while the human ships carried weapons that had been improved far beyond their original specifications. The battle was brief and decisive. Human plasma beams tore through Zephyrian shields like they were made of paper. Within minutes, the alien battleship was drifting helplessly in space, its engines dead and its weapons offline. Secure the ship for boarding, Nelson commanded. We need prisoners and intelligence data. Across the solar system, similar scenes were playing out. Hidden human forces were striking at every major Zephyrian installation while the alien fleet tried desperately to respond. The creatures that had ruled human space for 15 years were discovering that their subjects had become their equals. On Europa, Colonel Michelle Torres led a ground assault against the main alien command center. Her soldiers moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency, their new armor providing protection against Zephyrian energy weapons, while their own guns cut through alien defenses. Resistance is lighter than expected, Torres reported to her lieutenant, Captain Brian Wells. They really did not prepare for this possibility. The Zephyrians had always believed that their technological superiority made them invincible. They had never considered that a defeated enemy might learn from their technology and improve upon it. Now they were paying the price for their arrogance. Torres reached the main control room where a dozen Zephyrian technicians were trying to destroy sensitive data. Her soldiers moved quickly to stop them, using stun weapons to capture the aliens, alive. Every piece of information they could gather would be valuable for the larger war to come. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt, Major Christopher Lee was coordinating with unexpected allies. The mining operations that had served as cover for human military preparations had also made contact with other species oppressed by the Zephyrian Empire. The Delian ships are in position, reported Captain Nicole Adams from her command vessel, hidden inside a hollowed asteroid. They are ready to join the attack on the supply depot. Lee studied the tactical display showing both human and alien vessels moving into formation. The Delians were an aquatic species that had been conquered by the Zephyrians 60 years earlier. They had been forced to work in underwater mining operations, but they had never stopped hoping for freedom. What about the Thrax? Lee asked. Their insect fighters are already engaging Zephyrian patrols near Jupiter. They seem very eager to pay back old debts. The Thrax were different from humans or Delians. They looked like giant insects and thought in ways that most species found difficult to understand, but they hated the Zephyrians with a passion that needed no translation. The alliance between humans and other oppressed species was something the Zephyrians had never expected. The Empire had always kept their subject races separated, preventing them from communicating or cooperating. But human intelligence officers like Major Kevin Walsh had spent years building secret networks between the different species. Enemy reinforcements arriving from the outer system, Adams reported. 12 Zephyrian ships, heavy class, Lee smiled. Show them what we have learned about teamwork. The battle that followed demonstrated the power of cooperation. Human ships provided long-range fire support while Delian vessels used their superior, underwater experience to navigate the dense asteroid field. Thrax fighters moved in swarms that confused Zephyrian targeting systems. The Zephyrian reinforcements found themselves fighting 3 different species with 3 different combat styles. Every time they adapted to one threat, another would strike, from an unexpected direction. Within an hour, half their ships were destroyed and the rest were retreating. On Earth, Dr. Andrew Clark was putting the finishing touches on his most dangerous creation. The computer virus he had developed was specifically designed to target Zephyrian neural implants, the devices that connected their minds to their technology. The delivery system is ready, Clark reported to Admiral Lee. Captain Stephanie Ward's team can deploy it at any major command center. The virus was a masterpiece of biological warfare. It would not kill the Zephyrians, but it would disrupt their ability to interface with their own technology. Ships would become impossible to control, weapons would not fire, and communication systems would fail. How long before they can develop a defense? Admiral Lee asked. Months, maybe years. They built their entire society around the neural interface. They cannot just abandon it overnight. Captain Ward and her Special Forces team were already preparing for the deep strike mission that would deploy the virus. Their target was the main Zephyrian command base in the outer system, a heavily fortified installation that controlled all alien military operations in human space. The mission would be dangerous, but the potential reward was enormous. If they could infect the central command network, every Zephyrian ship and base connected to it would be crippled. As reports came in from around the solar system, it became clear that the first phase of the rebellion was succeeding beyond all expectations. Zephyrian forces that had seemed invincible were being defeated by former slaves using the aliens' own technology against them. High Commander Kethvar, the Zephyrian leader who had overseen human space for the past decade, was beginning to understand the magnitude of his failure. From his command ship near Mars, he watched the tactical display showing his forces in retreat across multiple star systems. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his subordinates. "These are the same humans we defeated 15 years ago." "Unknown, Commander," replied his aide. "Their technology appears to be more advanced than our intelligence indicated." Kethvar studied the reports flowing in from his scattered forces. Human ships that should not exist were attacking with weapons that exceeded Zephyrian capabilities. Mining operations were revealed to be military installations. Cargo vessels were actually warships in disguise. They have been preparing for this, he realized. All these years, while we thought they were broken and defeated, they were planning their revenge. The alien commander tried to contact the core worlds for reinforcements, but found that human forces had cut most of the communication links. The few messages that got through painted a picture of coordinated rebellion across multiple systems. For the first time in his long military career, Kethvar felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The humans were not just fighting back. They were winning. The tables had turned, and the hunters had become the hunted. The massive fleet hung in space like a constellation of steel and fire. Admiral Jake Harrison, now promoted to Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces, stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the final approach to Zephyrian Prime. 6 months had passed since the rebellion began, and now they were bringing the war to the heart of the alien empire. "All ships report ready, Commander," said Captain Brandon Scott from the engineering station. "The quantum torpedoes are armed and targeting systems are locked." Jake nodded, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. The fleet around him was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships flew alongside Delian watercraft and Thrax fighter swarms. Former enemies had become allies, united by their shared desire for freedom from Zephyrian tyranny. "Zephyrian Defense Fleet is moving to intercept," reported Colonel Ashley Martin from the tactical station. 48 ships, including their most advanced battleships. Through the view screen, Jake could see the alien vessels forming up for battle. They were beautiful in their own way, crystalline structures that caught and reflected light like living gems. But beauty would not save them from the justice that was coming. "All ships, this is Harrison," Jake announced on the fleet communication channel. "Remember what we are fighting for. Every human who died in the First War, every person who lived as a slave for 15 years, every innocent soul murdered on the Harmony. Today we finish what they started." The battle began with a symphony of destruction. Human quantum torpedoes, developed from captured alien technology but improved far beyond the original specifications, tore through Zephyrian shields like they were made of tissue paper. The aliens had never seen weapons like these before. "Their shield generators are failing," Scott reported with excitement. "The new torpedo design is working perfectly." Jake watched as alien ships that had once seemed invincible exploded one after another. The Zephyrians had grown comfortable with their technological superiority, never imagining that their former slaves could not only match their science but exceed it. The Delian ships moved through the battle like dancers in water, their fluid movements confusing Zephyrian targeting computers. The Thrax fighters attacked in coordinated swarms that overwhelmed alien point defense systems, and the human vessels provided the backbone of firepower that held the entire formation together. High Commander Kethvar fought desperately from his command ship, trying to rally his forces for one last stand. But Jake could see the alien commander's movements becoming more frantic as ship after ship fell to the Allied assault. "Enemy flagship is attempting to retreat," Martin reported. "Not today," Jake replied. "All ships, concentrate fire on the command vessel. End this." The combined firepower of the Allied fleet focused on Kethvar's ship. The alien vessel, once the terror of conquered worlds, died in a brilliant explosion that lit up the darkness of space. With their commander gone and their fleet shattered, the remaining Zephyrian ships began to surrender. "Zephyrian ground defenses are powering down," Scott announced. They are requesting terms for surrender. Jake felt a moment of satisfaction, mixed with sadness. The war was over, but at such a terrible cost. Millions had died during the 15 years of occupation, and millions more had died in the rebellion. Victory was sweet, but it came with a price that would never be forgotten. The surrender ceremony took place on the surface of Zephyrian Prime, in the same crystal palace where the original Treaty of Centauri Prime had been signed 15 years earlier. But this time the positions were reversed. Now it was the Zephyrians who stood defeated while humans and their allies dictated terms. Jake entered the great hall where Zephyrian leaders waited under heavy guard. The room was magnificent, with walls of living crystal that pulsed with inner light. It was designed to intimidate visitors, to make them feel small and insignificant. Today, it only made Jake think about how much beauty had been wasted on such an ugly purpose. The new Zephyrian leader was called Prime Advisor Nethkol, a younger alien who had taken power after Kethvar's death. Unlike his predecessor, Nethkol seemed to understand the reality of his situation. The Zephyrian Empire was broken, their military shattered, and their former slaves were now their conquerors. "Supreme Commander Harrison," Nethkol said through his translator, "we are prepared to discuss terms." Jake looked at the alien leader for a long moment. He remembered the first time he had seen a Zephyrian, 15 years ago, when they had come to demand human surrender. The roles were completely reversed now. "The terms are simple," Jake said. "Complete withdrawal from all occupied worlds, reparations for war damages, and the establishment of a new galactic government based on equality rather than domination." Nethkol's crystalline features shifted, and what Jake had learned was the alien equivalent of surprise. "You do not demand our destruction?" "No," Jake replied. "Humans are not interested in empire building. We want freedom for all species, including yours." The negotiations continued for hours, with representatives from all the allied species contributing to the discussions. Ambassador Gary Thompson, representing the New Earth government, worked out the details of reparations and territorial boundaries. The Delians and Thrax added their own demands for justice and compensation. When the new treaty was finally signed, it created something unprecedented in galactic history. The Terran Alliance was not an empire based on conquest, but a confederation of free worlds working together for mutual benefit. Every species would govern itself while cooperating on matters of trade, defense, and exploration. "This is just the beginning," Jake told the assembled delegates. "We have proven that no species has the right to rule over another. Now we must build something better than what came before." General Catherine Bell, who had led the ground campaigns that captured key Zephyrian installations, was put in charge of converting alien military technology for peaceful purposes. The same factories that had built weapons of conquest would now produce ships for exploration and trade. The transformation was remarkable to witness. Within months, former Zephyrian military bases became research facilities where scientists from different species worked together to solve problems that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. Disease, poverty, and environmental destruction were tackled with the same determination that had won the war. Dr. Helen Rodriguez, whose technological innovations had made victory possible, established the new Galactic Institute of Technology. Here, the best minds from every species would work together to push the boundaries of science and engineering. "Imagine what we can accomplish when we compete to help each other instead of destroy each other," Helen said during the Institute's opening ceremony. The most ambitious project was the construction of humanity's first interstellar colony ships. These massive vessels would carry volunteers to distant star systems, spreading human culture and ideals throughout the galaxy. But they would go as explorers and friends, not as conquerors. Jake stood on the observation deck of the new orbital shipyard above Earth, watching the first colony ship take shape. The vessel was huge, capable of carrying 50,000 people and everything they would need to build a new world. It represented hope for the future and proof that humanity had learned from its painful past. "Hard to believe how far we have come," said Lisa Park, now serving as his chief of staff. 15 years ago, we were prisoners in our own solar system. Now we are leading a galactic alliance. Jake nodded, thinking about all the people who had not lived to see this day. The crew of the Harmony, the workers who had died in secret military projects, the soldiers who had fallen in the rebellion. Their sacrifice had made this moment possible. "We won because we never forgot who we were," he said. "The Zephyrians tried to break our spirit, but they only made us stronger. They assumed we would stay defeated, but we were only biding our time." The first colony ship launched 6 months later, heading for a distant star system where humans would build a new world based on the principles of freedom and cooperation. It was followed by others, carrying the dream of humanity to the farthest reaches of space. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what humanity had fought to achieve.